Alrighty, hello and welcome to NYWF 2022. I'm Dan Hogan and I'm broadcasting from beautiful Gadigal land in the Eora Nation. I want to extend warmth and solidarity to any First Nations people tuning in today and pay my respects to elders past and present, always will and always was and always will be Aboriginal land. My name is Dan Hogan and welcome to Better Arguments with Unreasonable People. I'm going to self-consciously throw to Claire Sullivan and Rob Johnson, who are going to introduce themselves. Maybe we will start with, let's say, Rob Johnson. Introduce yourself, my friend.
Well, thank you, Dan. Hello. My name is Rob Johnson. I am also tuning in today from Gadigal land, Marrickville in Sydney, and I am a writer, but I'm also an actor. I work primarily in theatre, doing like musicals and comedy stuff, improv and sketch and that kind of thing. And yeah, I'm really excited to be part of the festival and part of this conversation today.
Hello, I'm Claire. I'm coming in from Wurundjeri land. I am, depending on the month, year, day, time, whatever, I do comedy. And I also write freelance for Vice and stuff. And my day job, I had sold my soul to the advertising world, where I'm a writer in an advertising agency. Yeah.
Taken down from the inside, Claire.
Yes. Try my best.
I'm Dan. I guess I didn't introduce myself. I don't do comedy, but I write funny looking poems. I have a book coming out next year with Cordite. That's probably the main things about me. Oh, and in my day job, I'm a casual primary school teacher. Yeah. So let's get stuck in. Let's just run at this beast full pelt. Better Arguments with Unreasonable People. I've got my Google Doc here. Me and Claire and Rob, we've been just throwing our ideas down, shooting this shit Google Doc style for weeks, if not months, leading to this moment, and we're pumped, thrilled to go with it. Let's go with. Yeah, that's it. Take the bull by the horns. Is that what you do? Yeah. Anyway, we've got that bull. We've got its horns. Yeah. Okay. The first question I thought we might kick off with is, what does having a better argument with an unreasonable person even mean? Who is unreasonable people? How are we defining this? Where's our departure point? What's this pier that we're going to either step off or piss off going to look like, guys?
Unreasonable people. I mean, they exist.
It's a very good question, Dan.
Thank you. I've got several more.
They do exist. There is no denying that unreasonable people are out there.
Maybe a better question is, how do you feel about defining an unreasonable person in a public-facing event?
Yeah, it genuinely is. I know I was being facetious before, but it genuinely is a really good and interesting question, because, and we were chatting a little bit about this earlier when we were preparing for this conversation, that it's kind of, especially an online environment where, there's so much instantaneous back and forth, and often, platforms, say like Twitter, tend to reward the hot takes and the best smackdown, and they often just end up being on these two extremes of opinion, end up rising to the top. That when you're talking about an unreasonable person or unreasonable people, it's just like us, right? Like if you find yourself in the middle of an all-in Twitter brushfire type debate, I think it's very possible that you maybe yourself even if not intending to be at the beginning of that conversation, perhaps you are being one of the unreasonable people in that head-to-head. And that's an extreme generalization, of course. That's not always going to be the case. But it's a weird thing about particularly online debate is that it encourages you to even accidentally go into a mode that is like, oh, I thought I was defending a point of principle or standing up for my friend or standing up for a point of view that is genuinely really important. But all of a sudden I'm debating within this framework that I didn't think existed, but I've just accepted the rules of, that like has now limited my humanity or limited my empathy. And it's then just really weird whether, like, even if you do come out with something very insightful or you do get the last word, was that a worthwhile interaction to have had, and has it ended up with a reasonable conclusion, even if you slam your computer down and feel like you're a hero? You know, it's a really weird one. And yeah, I don't know.
That's a really great.
I find the premise confounding.
Yeah, it's a great definition. I would also define anyone as unreasonable as anyone who I disagree with.
That's also true. I'd like to jump on board with that.
I will admit that I went through a short phase of being deliberately unreasonable online, and my thoughts were misguided, were to sort of waste the resources, mostly emotional resources of TERFs. So there's a period where I was like, I'm going to be as unreasonable as possible just to wear out the TERFs. Yeah, which of course meant I ended up wearing myself out. But I think, yeah, online is truly feral, because for every unreasonable person, for every accidental unreasonable person, there is definitely a deliberately unreasonable person, myself included at times.
Yeah.
How long were you able to sustain your energy on that project, Dan?
Yeah.
Probably a project is too strong a terms of defining it. It was more just like, what if I just did this thing? What if I just tried this out? And I think I ran at it like twice, just looking at my phone for 2 days. And yeah, it was ridiculous, and it had no actual impact on any level. I don't think I wore out anyone. I just got borderline doxed, and yeah, on turf lists somewhere else. Like, it just became, yeah, it was an experiment, and the result of the experiment was, yeah, don't do that. Complete waste of time.
It would have been a bit exhausting, I imagine.
Oh yeah, it was very quickly exhausting as well. But yeah, I did it so our viewers don't have to. So there you go. If you think that you can wear someone down just by sheer brute force of being annoying and unreasonable, no, it won't happen.
And also, everyone watching at home, if there is anything you're considering doing with your life, but you're not sure if you want to, just let us know. We'll do it for you, and we'll get back to you with the results. I'll do anything, guys. Let us know.
Text in on 0433.
But yeah, like, further to what you were just saying, Dad, like that is pretty funny and like weirdly noble. But there is a if you can't beat them, join them thing that like starts to kick in with that. Like, because it's so overwhelming, right? Like, you might start off with like, oh yeah, this is funny, or yeah, I'll just troll the trolls back. But it's like you end up realizing you're playing in a game that is slightly rigged, and you're like, oh no, I just voluntarily became a player in this instead of being like a cool maverick. I'm gonna play this thing. It's like, oh no. Everybody probably thinks that before they start.
Yeah. Don't recommend at all. 0 out of 10.
Yeah. It would have been very frustrating, because I imagine, because engaging with that kind of shit is frustrating, I think, because there's no point. There's no change in anyone's mind. So yeah,
I think that's the thing of it, isn't it? Yeah. Twitter, and I mean, Twitter's probably the main thing we're talking about here, I guess. it's not designed to start or finish or resolve anything. I know we made some notes. We had a bit of chatter earlier about, what is the business model of social media, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And it's peaceful resolution or constructive debate is certainly not. It's not in the DNA of any of these platforms or their business models at all.
No, it will fire you up in a pissed off way because it wants you to keep you stuck on there,
Yeah, that's right. The more you post, the more capital it generates for Twitter and and whoever they're plugged into. One bit of trivia I think I found out in the last few years is that Twitter rents its server space or its servers from Amazon. So like it's sort of like Twitter is like the little I don't know, it's the underling to Amazon. So Twitter rents out its server space from Amazon on a metered basis, sort of like how we would rent electricity. I used a lot of electricity this month. You got to give me more. So Amazon says to Twitter, like, oh, you used this much server space this month. You got to give us this much money. And I mean, that's a very simplistic view of it. But of course, Twitter is like, well, then how do we generate income for our stakeholders? And they know from their data that the stuff that generates that is, online combat, and certainly not the resolution of any conflict at all. So algorithmically, they go out of their way to keep it going in perpetuity, this sort of online unreasonableness, because it's hooked to Amazon's meter, etc.
But see, Twitter's a renter too. They're just like us. Twitter's got a landlord just like anyone. I mean, they're just trying to make ends meet. Amazon won't come around and fix the mold. They're trying to just do their best.
Little old Twitter is doing its best.
Well, without like just immediately sort of turning away from the premise, I'm interested in hearing if either of you think, like, in simplistic terms, whether there is good to be had engaging in argument, debate, whatever, with like people you don't know, or like willing to fall on a sword for an opinion, but like in a context that is not like, oh, you've got a disagreement with a very old friend or something like that. Do you think there is, like, obviously in a lot of places, like on Twitter, it gets out of hand, but do you think like the base level of that, of like, no, I'm not going to let you say that 140 character thing that I think is bullshit, I'm going to stand up for it? Is there, like, at its base, before it gets out of control, like a good thing in that, or do you think it's just something to be avoided, that it is a trap by its nature?
I think it is a trap, because I think generally if you already start getting an argument with someone, you're not going to change whatever their mind is or whatever. Like they're already off. You're both already off on the offense or whatever, So it's like hard to, if you ever want to change someone's mind, I don't think. Although I don't know how I would change anyone's mind. So I don't think I've ever successfully changed anyone's mind on anything. Possibly. Maybe. I don't know. But I did once have an argument with someone online once, years ago. I told you both about it before, but it's back when we all used to argue a lot more online. I feel 2015, the golden age of arguing in Facebook groups. I was in one Facebook group and I was having this stupid argument with this guy. I don't know why, but it was over something stupid. I didn't know who he was. It was just one of those Facebook groups, and I was like, oh, I think I said something like tram cops stupid, let's kill him or something. And he was like trying to give me reasonable like arguments back, and I was like, nah, kill him, like constantly. And then he was like trying to really engage, and I was like, you know what? And I went into his Facebook and I found his profile picture, and I went back through and I found one which was like horrible, and it was him dressed up in like a costume of a Nazi. And so I like downloaded it and put it up as like a comment reply, and then he blocked me.
God, Jesus Christ.
Classic.
That's a profile picture, you idiot.
That's actually a bit of a twist ending, Claire, because it started with like you were saying this dude was trying to like, you know, put like reasonably engage with this absurd thing that you were saying. And then he was dressed as a Nazi.
I was like, well, it was pretty funny. I don't get blocked often on social media. The other one time I noticed I was blocked was I was on Twitter and Netflix was retweeting something into my feed, which was like Harlan Cobden, the English crime writer. He'd written a book called The Stranger, and Netflix had turned it into like a TV show. And so they were like tweeting it into my feed, and they tagged him. So I retweeted it. And I said, Harlan Cobden's The Stranger is all about when you sit on your hand until it goes numb and you jerk yourself off. The Strangers that we'll do in high school. And then he blocked me, Harlan Cobden. The
Coward.
international best-selling crime writer blocked me.
This woman in Australia has somehow gotten access to my personal ideas diary. And she needs to be blocked. Who let her into my office?
Getting blocked. I'm trying to think if I have any interesting getting blocked anecdotes. I don't. None that immediately spring to mind. Do you have any, Rob, by chance? No pressure.
I don't, unfortunately. I don't have a good follow-up blocked-wise to that. But something I was thinking about before, just about engaging with social media, not about being blocked specifically, but I was like, this year I was, as you know, you go through your phases of just being a bit fed up with, you know, your online engagement and the like filter you have to put everything, or like just engage with it all on all those platforms. And I was like, I mainly just use Instagram as the main like sort of social media I use. I don't have Twitter, but I was just like a bit over it. I was like, I can't be bothered like really engaging with this anymore. So this year, pretty much, I haven't really been too like putting too much of my time into Instagram, which has been good. But it's that weird, I guess, kind of like a part of it is like egoism, where you kind of presume that it's like, oh, like, you know, I used to post on stuff, I used to look at everyone's stories and whatever, and then so if I'm gone, I'm sure this will like, you know, come across as some kind of, you know, my identity's changed, everyone, haven't you noticed? I'm no longer the slave to Instagram I once was. And like, you know, as much as it's been actually very good for me personally to not be so much on Instagram, and that's been nice just for me, that kind of effect that I almost just thought would happen in other people, or that anyone would give a shit, obviously did not occur. And I was just like, yeah, that's such an interesting, like, even the choice of like stepping back a bit from social media, there was still a very social media-esque like thought that people would be like, oh wow, what a choice to stop posting on so much on Instagram. And I'm just like, oh man,
so brave.
This thing, yeah, like brainwashes your thoughts about how people will react to things, even when you try to not engage with it, which I thought was very weird. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, that is a thing though. I've experienced that before too. When you take a break from social media for like not any dramatic reason, like, oh my god, something terrible's happened, or I'm making this gung-ho attempt at not using it, just like, oh, I'm not going to use it until I feel like using it again. But then I'll see someone in real life like, oh my God, what happened? I noticed you haven't been on Instagram for like a week. And so, did something happen? Is everything okay? And it's like, yeah, literally nothing has happened.
Man, you're telling me someone did care? Oh, maybe I'm not on Facebook. That's nice. I'm glad you're okay. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, like yeah, I was more than okay. I think that it sort of goes to the problem with a lot of the at a base level, arguing online is an argument between two individuals who are very limited in the way that they want to tell the world who they are. It's just it's like super atomized. You can't change anyone's mind as an individual. I mean, it's a pretty basic thing to say. If you want to be serious about changing anything for real in the world, it requires actual collectivism coming together, IRL. I guess when you don't really see that online, the idea is there, but the result is always, for better or worse, just pile on culture and people getting ratioed, which is great. I love watching some absolute fucking goose get absolutely annihilated, ratioed, and all the rest of it. But it's exactly that. It's not collectivism at all. It's great though, watching.
Oh, sorry, Dan. I cut you off.
Oh no, it's great watching. It's great to watch.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that kind of I think has to do with like the platform of the argument as well, because I do believe that there's definitely contexts where it's possible to like share ideas or argue, and for people to be like, oh, okay, like I'm going to take this on board. But it's like if it's happening in a comments section, it's like we have our entry to get into this comments section has included the understanding that none of us are going to leave here with any sort of changed opinion, and that this is actually, let's just perform an argument, but we're all here to kind of have a pile on or try and get in with the sharpest jab. And like, I don't know if that's that once again is a broad statement, but like, yeah, it seems like often the design of the whole thing is like, oh yeah, like we're pretending to have an argument, but like this is not a place where any of us are expecting to be like, oh wow, what a light bulb, I'm so glad I interacted on that post with that person.
Yeah. Although, yeah, I would also even say that a lot of my Twitter feed these days is like less arguments and more LinkedIn bros who have gone from LinkedIn to posting on Twitter in that very specific gross language of like, here are the top 5 things that you're not doing in your life that you can improve, thread. And then they have like the thread emoji, and then it's like the worst piece of advice ever. And that's just they're just constantly in my feed. And it's like, oh my God, I wish I could stop anyone from tweeting with a thread emoji. They seem to have the worst threads in it. Like, oh, horrible.
So you haven't taken any of their advice?
No, but I did one. I told you both about it before, but I did one as a joke. I did like a joke thread idea because I thought this would be funny, and it was like the two like symbols of like the like emergency, the triangle with the exclamation mark, like urgent, with the scenario with the unfolding with the unfolding scenario of that is happening in the cupboard. It's the wardrobe. With the unfolding situation that is happening in the wardrobe, and the 4 children, Edmund, Lucy, Susan, and Peter, probably abducted by a lion. Here's everything you can do. Thread 1/87, and it went really well. And then a woman, because it was going quite well, it was seen by quite a lot of people. Then this one woman was like, "There is no thread, folks," and I was like, "No shit."
Read the book if you want to know what happened.
It's like, that's how I use Twitter. I don't really engage in things unless I'm making fun of something a bit like that. But yeah. You know?
It's interesting. So do you think like Twitter specifically has come through or is emerging from its like, you know, our main thing is combat, online combat. Is it now moving into more like of a sort of the world of threads? So it's like, you know, people dispensing what seems like expertise on something that seems relatable or is connected to, I don't know, like the corporate world as an example. But I could imagine like wellness enterprises getting their fingers well into that. Because one thing Twitter doesn't do well is influencers. That's for Instagram.
Yeah.
But it seems like it could creep in through, you know, what you're describing there from LinkedIn, especially thread culture. Thread culture, I think, is where a Twitter influencer would thrive. And actually, now I think of it, I've seen a couple. They are rare recently. There's one this year which is particularly bad. I was reading it, quite an interesting thread about a revolutionary movement, and I was like, oh fuck, shit, I did not know this. This is some good, interesting stuff. I'm glad this is on the internet. And then it was a long thread, so it's probably 10 in total, and I read all of them. But when I got to like the sixth one, it was just like it was like, oh, and before you read the rest of the thread, here is a link to buy some watches or something, like, because it had quite a lot of engagements. Like there was tens of thousands of likes on each thing. And then when I went back and like clicked on the account and went through it, it was like that. It was all these like threads about quite interesting revolutionary liberatory history from the 19th and 20th century. But then there was always like a couple tweets in, it was like, oh, buy these fucking glow sticks from somewhere, or like
buy the galaxy lamp.
Yeah, whatever it is. Buy this thing to put around your knee in winter. Like, it's great, even if you, like, it's just so grotesque. It was just like so grotesque, especially given what they were trying to, especially what they were using to draw that engagement, which was not to actually draw engagement to the history of these really important revolutionary movements, and which have probably have been lost in a mainstream sense. It was more to draw people's attention into that so they can get paid promotion in there for some fucking useless thing. That's about as much of a Twitter influencer thing I've seen, but I guess it's nascent, and maybe that's where they're gearing it away from the online combat stuff, especially because I think there's been a lot of discourse around, how the quite obvious follow-on effects of that to real-world violence. So probably they're trying to steer their business model to, but how do we still make the same coin? That's like just influencers. That'll do.
And it's like, well, like that, watch promotion, glow stick promotion in the midst of this apparently interesting information thing, like that is so absurd and like kind of, like squint at it, extremely funny. And that like always strikes me about like what just online culture is, that so much stuff is so like perverse and actually really funny, but at the same time incredibly sinister. And like the way that those are like it's sort of the same thing sometimes, and that I don't know, like I don't have an answer to this, or even like if it just sounds too dramatic, but like the long term, like the sensitizing that happens where you're just seeing absurd shit like that, and even if you are like, oh, that's so annoying, or oh yeah, I see what you're doing, it's like when there's enough of that, it's like, how do you actually really engage with like in anything in like good faith ever? And that like is at once, like even me saying that now, I'm like, oh, I don't really believe that, but at the same time, I'm like, I think it's true, and that in itself is like a weird like double think that just happens to us by engaging online all the time or just seeing stuff online all the time. I don't know. It like wigs me out at the same time as makes me laugh a lot.
Sometimes when I find one of those threads by, I guess you could call them a Twitter influencer, the type of person that makes lots of threads and that have lots of engagement, then I'm like, who is this person? And then I click onto their profile and they're like, turns out they're like conservative and Christian, and I'm like, oh, I quickly unlike my like, but I'm like, so many people have liked this person's tweet and they're actually probably look, I could see on they have terrible views, and it's like, it's weird. Twitter's weird.
Yeah, it's deeply strange. The combat aside, it's just like it is such a bizarre. Like if I had to describe to like I don't know, my childhood self that in the year 2022 you're going to be looking at what is a telephone, and this is how you will experience that telephone. It just would be the strangest thing, because it is really strange when you step back from like, oh, hang on a sec, what actually is this, like, because we're so tethered to it and so in it. But to take a step back, I think is important, and go, yeah, this is very strange, and it's so like fluid, like the way social media works as well. Like the TikTok is an interesting one, because because I see a lot of TikToks not on TikTok, because despite being at National Young Writers Festival, I am advanced in my age as a millennial. I was born in the fucking 80s. So
that is so retro.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I'm a retro vessel, you know. But it is deeply strange. My favorite strange thing on the internet, broadly speaking, at the moment is Zoomers on TikTok, because the format of it, which I assume for most people is like it's normal, is the way that they talk to the screen and point at things when they're dispensing, you know, quite inane information. Like it is so deeply strange. Like, you know, if you want to have better arguments with unreasonable people, you know, like it's and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not making a moral judgment at all, because it's morally neutral. It's nothing. But I do extract joy from how strange that is. Like, you know, but I think that's true.
Just imagine them in their lounge room doing that.
Yeah. But I guess, you know, I sound kind of smug describing that, but really doing anything on social media is strange if you were to witness somebody posting. You know what I mean? Like, even on the more boring side of it, just sitting there, God knows where, posting anything at any time is quite bizarre. But
well, yeah, there's something about like, yeah, having an approach to posting like that, yeah, what you were just describing, that is like leaning into the strangeness or acknowledging the strangeness almost makes you like, I don't know, respect it more, or be like, oh, okay, this is like a thing, as opposed to, yeah, pretending everything is normal and we're engaging in a normal way, but clearly we are not.
Maybe if I was to park my cynicism for a moment and glean some optimism, I do like that TikTok culture of the hands and the dancing and the stuff that it's sort of it's done to a large extent, but it doesn't seem to be what's the word, like it's not dripping with irony like a lot of people of my vintage seem to have used, and my very much myself seem to use the internet. It seems like aware, but also not I don't know. I think there's some potential in it, to put it vaguely and vaguely optimistic as well, where that could have some utility, if only for enjoyment. Because I guess it's a lot harder to fight someone, or maybe it'll go to more like dance combat. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about now.
Yeah, no, sometimes I see someone's TikTok, but it's on my Instagram feed or whatever, and they're doing like a fit check, like an outfit. God, I do sound like a fucking old person. A fit check. And I'm like watching them, and the video is like them in the street, and I'm like, do you have no shame? Like, how do Zoomers not have any shame about standing there doing the thing, like in the middle of the fucking street? I seriously sound like an old person. To Zoomers, they need more shame. No, they don't. But oh my God.
Yeah, the culture's changing, because I see that and I'm like, oh, this is what culture is this? I think it's a very American thing, I think, to be like quite confident. Whereas in Australia, it's very in Australia, it's very uncool to be like, I don't know, flaunting your wares or whatever, tall poppy syndrome, etc. It's culturally frowned upon. But yeah, maybe that's changing. I don't know.
How old are you?
I'm 31.
I'm
born in 91.
30.
Oh, we're all in our 30s, so that's cool, I guess. That's something.
I'm here. Something about irony. I mean, I love irony, but it's like irony almost comes full circle. To be ironic becomes itself ironic in like a way of trying to, you're actually earnestly engaging. However, you need to provide a certain mask that you're like, yeah, cool. I don't care, man. Like, whatever. I'm funny. And that, it's one of those perverse things of like online engagement as well. And often, like, in debate with people, it's like whoever's like, yeah, I'm having this argument with you. But it's just like, it's just a bit of fun for me, and I can like, I've read every book in the world, and whatever, and I'm gonna like tear shreds off you, but it's just like casual. And that then, like, and I kind of like that, like I like ironic humor, as most people do, but then it in itself becomes like a self-defeating weapon. And I'm like, it's like just online engagement is geared towards the nth degree of whatever you're doing, that self-parody and like, defeating yourself even if you feel like you won, just like, it's like, oh, so I don't know, maybe there is something to a slightly more earnest, like, or I don't know, but like what you were describing, Clay, about like the confidence of like posting in quite an earnest way and like a self-promotional way. I'm like, well, maybe at least that's a slightly cleaner or more obvious way of like presenting an idea. Not that it isn't necessarily itself loaded with lots of probably like weird vibes itself, but like even the irony of it, not like winking at each other, we know what we're doing. I'm like, that is so perverse and removes you further and further from each other, even though it's supposed to be creating this, hey, we're just like being funny energy, like this very conversation,
Yeah I think the whole idea of like what you're just saying, Rob, reminds me of like the rise of having a personal brand online. Like if you're online, you have to pick something and stick to it. So if you're funny online, you can only ever be funny online. If you're angry online, you can only ever be angry, and only about your 3 issues, and that's it. It's very like this. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's. I don't have any point to make about that other than, maybe it can just get messier, and that's good. I don't know.
Do you think? Here's a question. Do you think we're online too much?
I think we're like certainly. Sorry, Dan, you go on.
Oh no, I'm glad. I was reluctant to say anything because it's like I don't know how to answer that and not sound old.
Well, like I saw there was a viral tweet like yesterday or today of this woman who was like so baffled how people meet people in real life, and she was like, how did anyone meet anyone in real life before dating apps? And like thousands of people were replying me like, this is how I met my partner in real life. It was in this really fun way. And then she'd be like, sure, but that sounds like chance, like that doesn't happen. And it was just like thousands of people be like, I happened to meet my partner in real life, it happens. She was like, no. But then like everyone I knew that was retweeting her, they're like, sounds like a fucking loser. Like clearly she's never been invited to a party. Like, yeah, she thinks that, like, I know, I feel like this woman was like an example of us being online too much because she doesn't understand how anyone can meet anyone not without using an app. It's like,
oh yeah, that's pretty severe. That the thought of being offline, the thought of something as like intimate as meeting a future partner is impossible unless it's done through an online medium. Is pretty shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like not even just like individual examples like that. It's like then, even though that is an example, it's then like the cumulative effect I feel of online engagement. And we've already spoken a lot about how I just sound old or bitter. Maybe, but also maybe that's just a symptom of being online all the time and being extremely aware of the absurdity of being online all the time and how unfulfilling a lot of that engagement is, yet I cannot stop doing it. And I don't just mean that it's because it's hard to not be online. I just mean like I like want to be online, or like I'm doing it myself voluntarily every single day, and organizing a lot of my life through those channels, and lots of it is really convenient and really good, but it's like the things that get me down about it, I'm not necessarily super active about like disengaging from all the time. And that's like once again, without just like making it sound morbid or dramatic, it is like I don't know, there's an element of like sickness about that, right? Like following a train of thought about the way you lead certain parts of your life, but being aware of it, but doing nothing about it. And that doesn't mean that it's necessary, I don't think, because I think the internet's a fucking miracle. But it's weird how it's very hard once you're engaged to moderate.
Yeah. I think that to speak to that, like, and to sort of circle back to the Claire's question, like, are we online too much? I guess my cynicism sort of comes from being online too much, and also watching over the last 20 years. Like, I started high school in the year 2000, so I've been like old enough, like an old enough kid, to now to see like social media come from nowhere and go through what it's gone through. But what has been interesting is how it's got smaller. Like the internet has got so much smaller, especially in the last just 10 years. Like it used to be, I used to love the early internet. Like when I was a teenager, you go on the internet and it's like, holy shit, look at all this. What am I going to find on here? But now you go on the internet, you go on free websites, and that's about it. Or if you go on other websites, it's through one of those three websites anyway. So if I'm reading a news website, I've got it because I found it on Twitter. Whereas the internet, even with social media, like crap like Bebo and MySpace and all the rest of it, it was less homogenized, I guess, is what I'm getting at there. But then I think, okay, so is that bad? And it's like, well, I don't know. But then when I sort of, I don't know, make an assessment as to why did it shrink, and it's because of all these huge companies, like we said earlier, like Amazon, for example, which Amazon basically owns all of the infrastructure through which anything that is informational or digital or on the internet runs through. They're sort of like, if the capitalist class was always sort of like, running the show, they were the ruling class, than Amazon and the equivalent of, so like Google and etc., who own those sort of that informational infrastructure, are sort of like the ruling class that rules the ruling class. They're like a new ruling class. So it's become homogenized because that suits their interests, and that's why also I think these apps, you can't have a lot of them. You need to funnel it all into those streams, but they're all like Instagram, for example, is just a shopping app. That's all it is. It's a shopping app, like at the end of the day. But it's like a shopping center. You don't get people to a shopping center by not making it look like something else. It sort of takes the idea of a public house, and a shopping center, and sort of melds them together. But you're always in attendance at it. You could,
well, and what you were just describing, Dan, that top heavy kind of the corporate style creation of this thing that we then all interact with. I think it's even more reason not to waste our precious time and energy in our lives on shooting fish in a barrel or whatever, or taking random shots at people online. But by all means, if you ever happen to find yourself face to face with Jeff Bezos or the CEO of a mining company, I think you should absolutely argue with them. I'm not trying to give off the impression of it's not worth arguing, guys, in this this discussion either. It's more just I feel like it should be either super micro, I need to settle this argument with my sibling, or super macro, go to where the actual shit is happening, not in this pool that they've created for us to all nip at each other while while the real stuff happens in the shady boardrooms, etc.
While I think of it, some recommended reading, because this is a writers' festival after all. It just made me think of it, talking about that stuff. Where I learned that from was from a really great book by Mackenzie Walk, who is from Newcastle, actually. A really good book that she wrote in recent years called, and I hope I don't say the title wrong, but it's something like, is this, what is it? Oh, Capital is Dead. Is this something worse? It's something like that. It's definitely called Capital is Dead. And then the tagline is or is this something worse? And the premise of the book is that, we've gone past late stage capitalism, and it's mutated, evolved into this other thing, through the likes of Amazon and others, who own the means of information. That is not, it's not late stage capitalism. It's whatever comes after that. We don't have the words for it yet, but that's the the structural beast that we're up against. Recommended reading. Very light, just great stuff. Great stuff.
I feel good about the space that we're in. I was talking to my coworker. We were chatting because I prefer to work from home than going to the office. And I don't know how we're talking about it, but we're talking about how we're currently in the age of Aquarius, right? And everyone was in the leading up to it, they're like, oh my God, we can't wait for the age of Aquarius. It's going to be the new, our brains are going to explode into the whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then turns out it's just the internet.
Yeah.
Oh no, we outsourced the brain explosion.
Yeah, we outsourced it to stuff. Oh no, Google, tell me where to go. That's all right. Yeah, just emails. It's just emails and Amazon.
Yeah. Do we have any optimistic hot takes?
Yeah, if there was a final word or something to that effect, if you had to tell a younger family member, say, I don't know, in the context of arguing with people online, what advice would you have to them, if you could give advice? I think as a young person,
I think I'd say try, if you're going to be online, just try to be silly, because it can turn into your entire world, and it's even though, you know, if you let it do that, then it will, and then you'll be stuck online forever. So just be silly and then go for a fucking walk.
I agree with that. That's really good advice.
I totally agree with that. I remember I know our pre-chat before this, we're talking about the idea of radical silliness, and I think that's something I would want to impart on a younger person. You know, don't take it too seriously, because it is, at the end of the day, a shopping app. So as serious as it feels, practice a bit of radical silliness, whatever that could mean to you, because it's a fucking shopping app. Like, you don't have to, you don't have to go to the shops all the time. Or do you?
and not to once again, not to sound too adult, but I think I'd also say that there's a lot to be said for, you know, the virtue of patience, and of like, you know, we get kind of trained or tricked into thinking that like in this very moment, this instantaneous messenger thing I'm doing, I need to know what I'm talking about, which is also, I think, trap. That it's like, you don't have the right to comment on this or stick up for this, or if you're not ready to comment on this or stick up for this, why not? You're letting us down, or you're letting yourself down. I think that's also just not true. And also that it's like, you're not going to get to the bottom of this right now, but like, if it genuinely makes you think or feel something, that's really good. Like, if you do feel angry about this thing, that's good. Why do you feel so angry? And think about that, like, for ages. Think about that for your whole life, and you just get like heaps better at explaining to people, especially people who are making you feel angry, why what they're saying might be a crock of shit. And I think that's a really awesome thing to commit to, like, in your life. It's just a shame that online argument kind of turns it into a like self-defeating thing.
Absolutely. I like that idea of, you know, thinking about it beyond the impulse, because it comes from an emotional place. When something aggravates you, or you want to contribute to a good cause, you're like, oh, I need to, you know, get this out there, sort of thing. I think it's worth still doing that, but also thinking, okay, but am I still going to contribute meaningfully after I've had that emotional release of posting the thing? Because I think one thing social media does, sorry to be a cynic again about it, it's sort of like, it takes that sort of caged energy of like, fuck, we've got to do something about this now, you know, and it atomizes it and then releases it into posts, so that the individual doesn't go further than literally wherever they're standing on their phone to do anything in the real world about it, because they've already got that emotional release from the post. But they need to do more than that, because obviously that can't just happen and then expect the world or the cause or whatever to meet its aims or interests. So I think, if I was going to dispense any advice, it would be, do that, but also think how, you know, in the bigger picture. All right. Well, we've been talking about this for a long time. Would you guys feel we have reached a not unreasonable note on which to conclude, or does anybody want to practice some radical silliness before we go, or does anyone want to do some deliberate unreasonableness?
I'll show you a hat that I have. That I it's a pretty good hat.
Is that a feral TV thing? That reminds me of.
That looks like Radis.
I made it. I made it for my last comedy show, but I based it on Radis, because
amazing.
You can't see because I've got the green screen thing on, but he has like a mohawk and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, the possum in the background and then that hat. I mean, that's a strong energy. It's great.
A rat named Radis, and on that note, should we conclude? Are we going to conclude? Maybe I'll count down from 3, and we can all say, what will we say? NYWF 22. Yeah,
that sounds nice.
All right, let's do it. Yeah, and as awkwardly as possible, if possible, because as with everything on the internet, it's manicured, of course. So yeah. Anyway, 3, 2.
And sorry.
3, 2, 1. Go to NYWF
22.
22.